What's going on, everybody? Another great weekend down. Here we are on yet another week as we take off here on Monday. And, there's something as the weather is starting to cool down, or at least it's supposed to be cooling down. It's still been pretty hot out here in California. We're headed into that cooler weather, football time, basketball, and playoff baseball. It's a great time of the year for sports over the next couple of months. So I am very excited to see how my 49ers do this season. Finally, we've got all our holdouts behind us, all that kind of stuff. So I'm very hopeful. As we look at our collections and as we look at the history of collecting, especially when you're looking at football and baseball, primarily baseball, there were the two big brands. It was Bowman and it was Topps. And, Topps kind of came on the scene and they ended up kind of muscling Bowman out of there and taking over for quite a few years before the Fleer and the Donruss and some of those other brands got in there. Now, Fleer had its little moment in like the early 1960s. He had the 63 set. Leaf had a set in 49, 48, 49. And so, but the primary sets and collections that we all know of, the sets that we think of when we think of that time period, are Topps and Bowman. And so that doesn't mean those are the only sets, though. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people forget is, my buddy Dylan, Double D Vintage Baseball Cards, he says, if it didn't come in packs, I'm not interested. He's a baseball card guy, and he's a cards that came in packs. And I get it. And I totally respect it, too. It's not that there's a right way or a wrong way. But the thing about the 50s in particular, and the late 40s, and the early 60s, is there were some other sets. Some regional releases, some food issue releases, some tobacco issue releases that were some really, really great cards. And so after you kind of get past that first layer of the onion of Bowman and Topps, it's important, I think, to look at some of the other options. I've talked a lot about how the hunt, the chase for certain cards is a lot of fun. And some people are like, Greg, I don't want to collect pirate cards from before the turn of the century. Or I don't want to collect, T206 cards. They never come up in person at shows that I attend. And I get that. I do totally get that. And I also know that a lot of people want to collect players from the 50s and 60s. Those are the golden age. That is the golden era of baseball and of cards. So I totally understand that perspective. But last week I asked everybody, hey, other than the mainstream sets. Now, apparently this last week there was a big controversy over, are these oddball cards? Don't call them oddball. I'm staying out of that. I totally respect, I'm in friends with people on both sides of that discussion. That is not my primary thing. I don't mind the term oddball. I like having some descriptive term that's all-encompassing of the sets that aren't Topps or Bowman. Whether oddball is a hurtful term or not, I don't know. But I totally understand people thinking, no, they're not oddball. They're just cards. They're just different sets. Well, whatever it is, the sets that were not wider releases, that were more regional releases, that weren't ones that came in packs at convenience stores. There are some really, really good sets. So if you want to collect guys like Mickey Mantle or Stan Musial or Joe DiMaggio or Jackie Robinson, there are some great sets that allow you to have a little bit of a hunt, right? To dig a little bit, the lesser common cards, the cards that are not as widely available, but are beautiful cards of some of those players from that same era. And so what I asked last week is, what is your favorite release that is not a mainstream release like Bowman or Topps. And I think you all hit it out of the park. There were tons and tons of responses, and it would be impossible for me to go over all of them because there were so many great responses. So what I did was I chose about the 5 or 6 most popular, the ones that came up the most often, the ones that were mentioned more than others. And I'm going to start with the one that was mentioned the most, and then I'm going to go to the one that was mentioned the second most, and then kind of work my way down from there. And what I want to do is I want to take a closer look at those sets. So I'll read the comments, I'll read the explanations, and they're great ones. And then we'll take a look at the cards themselves and say, what do they look like? How much do they cost? What are some of the key cards? What's the population of them? And I would be shocked if you were to watch these and listen to people's explanations and not say, yeah, there's a couple of sets in there that I think I might be interested in getting involved in. At the very least, it's great to be familiar with them. But I think a lot of us might walk away and say, yeah, I could see myself getting more into collecting this release or this release. Let's take a look through several releases that were very popular and mentioned from all of you over the last week. Let's check them out. In response to sets from lesser-known manufacturers, my choice is the Red Heart set. Although I have only the Mantle and Mutual cards, I think this is one of the most colorful sets issued. Specifically, I think the Red Heart Mantle card might be his best-looking card. In response to next week's question, my choice of oddball card sets would be the 1954 Red Heart baseball card set that includes the best photos of Mantle, Musial, Minoso, Snyder, and Williams. All right, so here you can see an advertisement or like the instructions for how this worked. You can see the cans of Red Heart dog food there. And then it's got like the different sets. So there was set 1, the first release was the red background, and then set 2 was the blue background, and then set 3 was the green background, and each set had 11 cards, and so a total of 33. And it kind of talks about the process of mailing it in and kind of how that works. And then you can see here it goes into the checklist of the 3 sets. So again, this is another ad, and it's got Stan Musial, Richie Ashburn, Ralph Kiner. You can see 11 there, and then set 2. Obviously, the big one is the Mickey Mantle, but there are other important players too: Minnie Minoso, Nellie Fox, and then set 3, Duke Snyder, Jim Gilliam, Warren Spahn, others. So all 3 sets had some big cards in them. And if we take a look at them, here is the Richie Ashburn from the first set of 11. And then the Stan Musial is one of the most famous cards in the set, probably the second most famous other than the Mantle. And then the Ralph Kiner. Again, these are just 3 of the 11 from the first series of 11. But that Musial card has become a very big card. Also, we got to keep in mind, Mantle and the Stan Musial didn't have Topps cards in 1954. So let's take a look at the second set. So we had in blue there, we got the Mini Minoso, and then the Mantle, which a lot of us have seen before, as Dave mentions, might be his most beautiful card, and I'm right there with him. To me, it's the 52 Mantle, and this is the 2 best looking cards for Mantle. And then Nellie Fox. Centering was tough on these, especially on the back. You'd see sometimes they'd be in good condition on the front and then off center on the back. But centering's a big part of it. And we got the Duke Snyder in the green. Now, that's a bigger card in the set. I really like the Warren Spawn. In fact, I recently bought one of those. You'll see that on my September pickups video. And then a Jim Gilliam, and an important player in his own right, and a very good player as well. It's a couple Dodgers there on the screen. So beautiful cards, bright, bold colors, really, really popular set. I totally understand uh, the desire for people to pick some of these up. Now, I thought it would be important to show kind of, hey, what do these sell for? So, if I'm going to show you some cards and people are saying, oh, I love these sets, I love these cards. Well, we kind of want to know the price range, don't we? Well, here is a 54 Red Heart mantle. Again, this is a mantle, so it's going to be expensive. This one's in a high grade, it's in a 7. And I thought I'd show the card with a recent eBay sale. Well, this 7, really well centered. I mean, that card's got really, really good eye appeal. Sold for 4,200, ended August 26th, so a couple weeks ago. Beautiful card, but it gives you an idea of what it goes for. And then if we look at the Mutual, if you watched my video of the last Sacramento card show where my friend Mike Petty came up, he bought one of these in a 6.5, while this 8 sold for $2,872. Another nice one. It looks like there's a little shadow on the bottom right there. I don't think that's damage, although it's hard to know. And then we've got Duke Snider. Duke Snider is arguably the biggest card in the third section. The red section is the hardest to obtain. It seems to be the rarest. We're going to look at pop reports here in a second, too. The Snider is much more affordable. This is a nice eye appeal card in a 4 that end of July, actually during the National there. Look at that. Sold for $177.50. So kind of a range of 3 of the bigger cards in the set of what they sell for, and kind of a range in a couple of higher grades and then more of a mid grade here with the Snider. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of what these go for. Being such a small set, each card obviously is a big portion of the set. You know, if there's 33 cards, that means each card is 3% of the set if someone were to build it. Looking at the pop report, so how rare are these? Well, up at the top, I've got the total population for PSA. So total 11,216 of the 33 cards have been graded. So they're not crazy rare. They're not plentiful. It's not like a Topps or Bowman set, but they're not impossible to find. You'll see them out and about if you look for them. The mantle, it has 1,365 here, and then some with pluses, half grades, and then some with qualifiers. So about 1,500, 1,600 or so mantles have been graded. Mutual, quite a bit less, 586, and then 59 half grades, 30 with qualifiers. The Spawn, a little bit less than that. About 600 or so Spawns have ever been graded. And then the Snider, about 400 or so have been graded of that. So again, rare, but not impossible. I thought it'd be fun to share kind of how rare each of these sets are as we're going through them. So that is the 1954 Red Heart. Answer to your question, I like the Red Man, Wheaties, Home Run Derby, Post, Jello, and Hires Root Beer, Bazooka, Cons, Partridge Wieners, and a few other regional sets. Most of these issues are oversized and have wonderful images and aesthetics. So much out there besides just Topps and Bowman. 1958 Hires Root Beer with tabs are my favorite from that era, non-Topps, Bowman, etc. Love these. Just something about the wood grain cards for me. I also love the Red Man cards. I bought my first one ever a few months ago and love them.
My grandfather used to chew the tobacco, and it just reminds me of him. He had told me while he was still alive that back when these originally came out, that he would just give them to the neighborhood kids. I wish he would have held on to them, but that's not very real logical thinking on my part. How would he have known his grandson of the future would love these cards? I sometimes wonder if anyone ever held on to them. Anyways, once again, Greg, have a great day.
Now, when people were submitting that they liked the Hires root beer, which was also a popular choice, I wasn't sure if they were specifically referring to the test set or the full regular set that was released. If you look up here, you can see it says test set for this Vern Law. Now, a couple things to point out. So, this test set also had the perforated section on the bottom. So, we'll look at the back of these here in a minute, and you'll see that this was a mail in with a dime, I believe it was, and a couple of bottle caps. Yeah, it says right there 10 cents and a couple of bottle caps of Hires root beer. Um, and there was a giveaway that went with that. And so the test set is much, much rare, as you'll see when we look at the pop report. And then the test set with the tabs are even rarer. So we'll look at all that here in a second. So the Vern Law is not the big card in the set, but that is what it would look like in a PSA holder without the tab. So obviously with the tab, it's going to be an oversized card. This is more of a standard-ish sized card here in the one without the tab. That one's in a 5. But the big card in the test set is the Willie Mays. And this one doesn't have a tab. It's in a 3. So I think these are stunning cards. You've probably seen a couple people show the Hires root beer test card. A couple guys in the community have these and have shown them from time to time. Beautiful cards. So let's kind of see what those go for. So this was a little bit harder to dig up. There weren't recent eBay sales because it's pretty rare. So this is from Card Ladder. So a recent one of the test card with no tab, like we're looking at here. In fact, it's this one, sold for $1,105. Another recent one on an REA auction in December. Again, you can see they don't sell super often, $750. And then you can see how much it went up for the SGC3. This is obviously going to be an older holder if it's an SGC40. So it was graded a while ago, but that 3 sold for $2,100. So the test set is pretty darn expensive, even without the tab. If we look at the Maze, which is the key card in the test set, with the tab, there's only 3. There are only 3 that have ever been graded. It looks like the highest is a 6 and a 4 and then a 1. So that's really, really rare. Without the tab, still rare. 56, so 65 or so from PSA. Obviously, SGC probably, certainly has some as well. So I don't know. We could give or take guess about 100 of the test Maze cards have ever been graded. And then again, the width, the tab, super rare. So then we have the regular set. And there you can see the back. I was saying a second ago, we'd take a look at that. So there's the perforated section and then the giveaway stuff there. You put your name and address, and then the back of the card has some information about Hank Aaron. Obviously, it's going to have a Hires root beer ad there and some information about him. So people would perforate these off, rip them off, and then send them in with the dime, the bottle caps for the giveaway. Our friend Orlando of A Collector's Dream recently bought an ungraded Maze and send it in to SGC, did a video on it. I'll link that in the description down below. Great video. He talks in depth about the set and how it all worked. His has the tab. So here's what the Maze looks like without the tab. This is a high grade 9. So you'll see it's the same image that the other one had.
except this one has, instead of just the orangish background, it's got this sort of knot hole, like you're peeking through a knot hole, and then the full image there. And then another card in the set that is one of the more important cards would be the Larry Doby. This one's in a 1.5 without the tab. So it's obviously uh, not a super common card to get, but it has. We'll look at the population here in just a sec. So here was a recent Hank Aaron uh, with the tab in an SGC 5. You can see how oversized the slab is. And that one sold for $1,500 in the 5 grade. And you can see that an REA auction, an Aaron went for, in a 7 went for 2520, an 8 went for 5,025, and then you can see down here 2950 for the 7 that sold back in June. So they do pop up. I mean, that's 4 that have popped up in the last 3 months or so. But they're not cheap when you have the tab, especially. So here is the pop report. Total of 3366 plus, so about 4,500 or so that have ever been graded by PSA. The Doby without a tab. This is interesting. The Doby without a tab, 21. The Doby with a tab, 40. Thought that was interesting. No tab on the Maze, 76. With a tab for the Maze, 67. So the Doby is a little bit more common with the tab, but the Maze is a little bit more common without the tab. And then the Aaron, and I just cherry picked 3 of the key cards in the set. The 65 for the no tab of the Aaron, and then 61 with the tab.
Greg, your knowledge and views are spot on. Please keep being a good steward for the industry. As for your question, Redman and Regional Cons are beautiful cards. Thanks again, Robert. Greg, I really like your comment about getting cards graded being like insurance, and I tend to agree. This week's question is awesome. There are so many amazing sets that aren't from major manufacturers. The Red Hearts, Bazooka, Wheaties, Exhibits, and many more are amazing cards. I think if I had to pick one set, it would be the Redman cards. The artwork on these really make them stand out to me. I don't currently own any, but I definitely plan to in the future. Thanks as always, my friend.
So next, the Redman Tobacco. I think these cards are stunning cards. I love the artwork on them. They're going to be oversized as well. They're a little bit taller than a standard size card and obviously wider. So the slabs are going to be much larger than your normal slab. Some people like that, some people don't. And then you can see down here the tab at the bottom for the giveaway. So people could cut these off. So there's the with the tab and then without, and then it's kind of confusing how PSA does it because sometimes it seems like they call them altered when they're not cut, but I think it's about where it's cut along the dotted line. So if the dotted line is cut off and the card is partly cut off, then it's going to get the altered. So anyway, so you'll have them with the tab and without the tab, and this is a 52 Maze. So I mean, this is the same year as its 52 Topps card. And these came out in 52, 53, 54, and 55 with Redman Tobacco. Now we'll take a look at another one. There's a Duke Snyder. This is a 53 Snyder. You can just see look how gorgeous that image is. The background information about them. Again, that one has the tab as well. When they have the tab and they're high grade, they are fairly expensive. But without the tab and raw or low grade, they're very, very affordable. There's one where the tab was cut, you can see, of Ted Williams. I think they're really, really good looking cards. I've really thought about getting into these, but I'm trying to narrow what I collect, not widen. So here's a 54 Redman, so the third year of them. And it's an 8 grade of this Barra. So because it's the 8 grade and because it's Barra and because it's so sharp and because it has the tab, it's going to be expensive. So this one sold for $1,146. But the pop on an 8 is low, right? There's only, it says here pop 21 in an 8. It's just for something that long ago that was put in a piece of plastic and attached to a soft pouch of Redman tobacco 70 years ago. Just not going to come in 8 very often. Here is a 52 Pee Wee Reese. This is a 6, so fairly high grade with the tab. $188.50. That's very affordable. To me, I think that's very affordable for a super cool card from 1952 of a Hall of Famer, a well-known Hall of Famer who played on the Dodgers as well. So they can be found affordable if this is something that you want to get into. So the total population, so there's so many different players, it was going to be hard. So I just thought it'd be a good idea to show you the total pops of each. So in 52, there's 5423 total. 1953, there's 4,560. 54, 4,197. And then 55, a little bit of a jump in the population to 4812. So it's interesting that the most common year that they exist is the first year that they existed. So again, they're rare, but they're not crazy rare. And because the value isn't super high on these, you'll still find quite a few of them in raw condition, ungraded. So it is very possible that there are a lot. Well, I know they're circular. I see them. It shows a lot ungraded, but that's like when you see that Duke Snyder, or no, the Pee Wee Reese, that wasn't super expensive in a high grade. Some of them aren't really worth grading if they're not a big name. That's part of the reason I think the pop is low. I think there's more of them out there, just haven't been submitted for grading in some cases.
Wow, so hard to choose. There are so many I like. I will go with the 1954 Wilson Franks because the Campanella from this set is just one of the most visually appealing cards in my collection. Campy has a lot of great looking cards, but I think this is his best. I really like the Feller and the Nellie Fox too. The Williams, which I really love, is one that I am not sure I will ever get because it is so expensive, but maybe someday I will save up for it. He is one of the 2 Hall of Famers I don't have yet.
All right, so the 54 Wilson Franks. Gorgeous cards. Here's the Feller. That's a really nice card. Those don't come in 8s. You have to keep in mind, these were put in the package, so a lot of them have grease stains. There was a find of some a few years ago that got backdoored that were not in the package, and that is where some of the highest grade ones come from. But a lot of them are going to have some grease issues. There is the big one, the Ted Williams. So that card in a 6, that would be a really, really expensive card. Really expensive. It's a very popular card. It's a very low population card, which we'll see in a second. Gorgeous. And then the Gil Hodges. That one in a 6 as well. So beautiful cards, very popular set. At the National this year, I think I saw 2 of the Ted Williams cards there, and they weren't cheap. So if we look at this Ted Williams, this one is in a SGC 1.5, and it recently sold. And you can see, I mean, it's kind of cut weird, and it's really soft. There's some damage here. Still sold for $2,650. So any condition, this thing is going to go for a lot of money, especially the Ted Williams. The others are somewhat affordable. The Ted Williams in any grade, in any condition, is going to be
Really, really expensive. The Roy Campanella here in a 1, that sold for $635. So, again, I think that one has really good eye appeal. Nothing crazy, just really soft corners. Maybe a little bit of surface stuff, but centering's good. Image is good. $635 on that one. How about the Gil Hodges? This is a 1.5. Recently graded. You can see the serial number up here. Recently graded Gil Hodges in a PSA 1.5, $271. So even the lesser famous Hall of Famers in low grades sell for a lot. It's just a very rare set, a very popular set. And we'll take a look at that right here. Total population 1,705. So about a little over 2,000 total, with including the qualifiers and the half grades. So that means, but look at this: the Campanella, 88 of them, plus this, so 120. The Feller, about 130, 135. Nellie Fox, about 120 of them. Gil Hodges, about 120 of them. And then the Ted Williams, few more of that one. Probably because every single one in any single condition. Look at all these ones here. You got 19 authentics, 25 ones, and 25 ones with qualifiers. So, that's 50 of them right there. But about 200 have ever been graded of the Ted Williams by PSA.
Regional releases, food brand issues, etc., are way cool to collect, and among my favorite from the 1940s is the Bond bred Joe DiMaggio and Teddy Ballgame. Just take a look at those poses and that swing. For the nifty 50s, it's without a doubt the Star Cal stickers with side-by-side combos of Pee Wee Reese and Gil Hodges, Feller and Dobie, and Mays and Monty, as well as Campy and Jackie, all on one card. Close runner-ups is the 52 Rawlings Stan Musial with 6 different variations. I mean, as hard as it was to get him to pose for baseball cards, he does it here in a rare feat. Frankie's real rookie on the Cons Wiener card, circa 56, a full year before the Topps debut. And take a look at Big Clue's howitzer-sized guns under those trademark cutoff sleeves. Or the action photo of Roy McMillan are worth collecting and must have for the hobby binder.
So our last one is the 47 Bond Bread. Now, the 47 Bond Bread, there are a few different sets here. So it gets a little bit confusing. There's like a Jackie Robinson set, and Exhibits did a set. You can see that the corners, wouldn't call them rounded, they're kind of octagoned off. And here's a Stan Musial with the same. Then there were a couple of different types of bread. There's a homogenized bread which had pointed corners. So when people suggested these, I wasn't sure which of the varieties they were most fond of, so I just went with kind of the basic one here. But these are really attractive cards, and they're a little bit oversized as well. I recently saw Yogi Berra and featured it in a couple of my card show videos. It ended up selling from that dealer. A couple of people reached out and said, I might want that. That Berra right there was the card. It was in a 5, I think. And the dealer ended up selling it. And there's the Jackie. Now, interestingly, these two cards are from 47. Berra's rookie card, commonly referred to rookie card, is the Bowman, which is in 48. Jackie has a 49 Bowman and a 49 Leaf. So, some people would make the argument, well, what's the actual rookie card? And then that's that whole debate about what is a rookie card and what are the requirements to be a rookie card. But needless to say, these are early cards, and the same for that Musial there on the right. His Bowman rookie card is 48 Bowman, and then he's got a 49 Leaf and a 49 Bowman. So this is one of his first cards. So you can make that argument as well. So these are also fairly rare and fairly expensive. Let's look at what the Stan Musial in a 5 went for. Well, not awful when you think about it. If you can make the argument that it's his rookie card, $1,076 for an SGC 5. Here's a Joe DiMaggio in an SGC 2. By the way, this variety of the set, PSA won't grade. They don't grade the 47 Bond Bread with the rounded corner one, or if you want to call it rounded or whatever you want to call this one. They don't grade them. They grade some of the others, the exhibit one, the homogenized one. So this Joe DiMaggio in an SGC 2 sold for $485. That seems like a pretty good deal to me. Of a plain days Joe DiMaggio. And because PSA doesn't have it on their registry, they don't have the pops because they don't grade them. The only way to get them the totals is by looking up the SGC report. So a grand total, if you look, I know it's really small, sorry. The grand total is 1,545 have ever been graded by SGC. The highest ever grade is a 9. There's only 7 of those. 8s, 93 of those. So when you're looking at something with a total population of 1545, and by the way, this total population is of all the varieties. You can see here all the Jackie Robinsons. It includes the perforated one. It includes the exhibit ones. It includes all of them. So pretty rare if there's only 1545 ever graded by SGC. A really good looking set.
I just think there were some beautiful suggestions in there. That Red Heart set is absolutely gorgeous. And you can find it. It's not impossible to find those cards. That's a beautiful Mantle, a beautiful Mini Minoso, a beautiful Snyder and Spawn and Musial. I mean, those are gorgeous cards. Richie Ashburn, Nellie Fox, some great players that were included in that set. Maybe you want to build a set, but you don't want to build a set of 700 cards. Well, that set has 33. Very reasonable. Very easy to put that together. I would strongly consider that. The Hires Root Beer, whether you want the rarer test versions or you want the whiter releases with that knot hole look, those are very cool. Maybe you want to go for some of those with the tab, want to go with some of those without the tab. Much rarer to get one of those than it would be to get one of the Red Heart cards. Maybe you like, I mean, for me, I remember as a kid, even today, it's fairly common to find some Redman cards. They're not super rare. And there are still a lot that have not yet been graded. And I think it's partly, like I mentioned, because the price in some of them, it just doesn't make sense to spend $25 on grading for a card that you could buy raw for $30. So I get that, but the question on those is the population not huge because the value is still low? Or are they rare? Well, I think it's more of the first thing. I think it's just a lot of them are still out there in raw condition. And I like collecting things in raw condition too. Those are some beautiful cards. Maybe you want to go for the ones with the tab. Maybe you want to go for the ones without the tab. It gives you options. The Bond Bread cards. Again, there are a few variety of Bond Bread cards, a few different variations. The ones that I showed are fairly rare. When I saw that Yogi Berra in a 5 not that long ago, it was pretty appealing, but the price was pretty high because it is pretty rare, and it does predate his rookie card. Some great cards, absolutely, and I see the appeal of all of them. And thank you to everybody who participated. There were some great comments that I didn't get a chance to read because I just couldn't read all of them. But I do appreciate everybody that commented. Now, this week, I have another question that I'm really interested in because I had a question from last week, and I mentioned this briefly about a week ago. And I mentioned that I had sold a card. And then I had mentioned that, I'm always kind of selling some stuff. And I just don't talk about it that much, what I sell. And so my buddy Golden Slumber, he left a comment. He said, "Okay, Greg, well, let's talk about this. What have you been selling?" And for whatever reason, I think there was a stigma for a long time about you're not a real collector if you ever sell anything. I disagree with that. I think we're all kind of refining our collection all the time. We're always kind of trimming the fat, going, yeah, I'm kind of moving away from this and into this. I'd now rather have this thing over here than that thing over there. And it's okay to move something on to a new home where it will be more appreciated and you've gotten appreciation out of it. I think that's totally okay. And so my question for this week is as follows. What's the last card that you took out of your PC and decided to sell? And what's the reason you decided to sell it? See, to me, I think this is a super interesting question. Nobody really talks about this. It's a part of the hobby that for whatever reason, people don't like to say, oh yeah, I used to have this card, but I sold it. There's pickup videos all the time. There's grade reveal videos all the time. And those are perfectly acceptable. But I think behind the scenes, there are quite a few of us who move things on. And I think that's okay. I think trading out this thing over here for this other thing over here is normal. My buddy Adam of A Vintage Sanctuary, if you haven't subscribed to his channel, you should. He's been a coin collector for a long time. And what he's been doing is slowly moving out of coins and into cards more and more. So he sells some of his coins to buy cards. I totally get it. He enjoyed the coins. He still enjoys some. But he said, I'd rather have this 52 Willie Mays Topps card than this coin over here. So I'm going to sell this and I'm going to go buy that. I think that's part of the fun. We don't talk much about what we sell, but I'd be interested in kind of pulling back the curtain and ask, what is the last card that you've sold that used to be a PC card, and why did you sell it? It doesn't mean that the card is now a bad card. It doesn't mean that the card you don't like. It just was time to move it on. So what have you moved on recently, and why did you move it along? I'm really curious to hear about this because it's something that we don't talk about very often, but I know it's happening behind the scenes for a lot of us. Please take a second and share your thoughts on that. I look forward to talking about that. I look forward to hearing what your responses are. And as always, let me know what you think about in the comments below about all of these different sets. What's your favorite one? Is there one that you're thinking, hey, that is one I might want to start looking into a little bit closer? Is there one that caught your eye? Let me know in the comments below. I look forward to hearing it.